Manual scavenging is this incredibly old occupation, which is actually caste coercion, caused by the caste system in India that forced Dalits into this kind of work. And sewage work is just this new iteration of this, right? You have flush or water seal latrines, and then same communities are being forced to clean those pipelines. The whole idea for the chapter came out of the almost epidemic of deaths of manual scavengers and of sewage workers in particular. There'd been a spate of deaths in Delhi, after which the Delhi government had put out this advertisement on YouTube. And it was called Apni Suraksha Apne Haath.
दिल्ली के मुख्यमंत्री अरविंद केजरीवाल ने सोमवार तालकटोरा स्टेडियम में सीवर सफाई कर्मचारियों की जागरूकता कार्यशाला में इस बात का ऐलान किया कि इन कर्मचारियों को मुफ्त में सेफ्टी किट मुहैया कराई जाएगी।
लेकिन फिर भी इसकी सबसे बड़ी जिम्मेदारी आपको लेनी पड़ेगी।
To me, actually, this narrative dies, right? Which is that your safety is in your hands. It's your job to stay safe. And it's ignorance that is preventing otherwise is very much emblematic of the government's attitude towards sanitation work and sanitation worker deaths. And then you also see around the 1800s, the way in which municipal governments and municipal authority made it their mandate to take over sanitation work, turning it into something that the state was responsible for. And the real shift is actually in our era, where the state is saying, it's not our responsibility. Apni suraksha apne haath, we have nothing to do with it. The really central shift historically that you see is that, well, even though caste as an institution and a structure of power has often forced people into sanitation and into manual scavenging and then now into sewage cleaning, there's actually a way in which modernization institutionalized that process. So with the widespread building of latrines in the colonial era, scavengers were imported from different parts of the country into sanitation work in the cities. And you see this actually very vividly after partition, where Dalit refugees were put in separate refugee colonies compared to upper caste refugees. And Jamadars for the DMC would actually go to those refugee colonies, right, and recruit sanitation workers from there. So there's a way in which the historical structure of caste, there was this edifice then of modernity and then also the technology of the dry latrine, and then now the water latrine that built on this to institutionalize that link between caste and sanitation work, which persists to this day. There is this shift that happens in the neoliberal era towards a certain kind of, not just a restructuring of the public sphere or public services and functions, but actually in the very nature of labor itself. The fact that there's now rampant contractualization in sanitation work, and also the contractualized workers themselves often rely on informal workers who will come in and clean drains. So you've got a system then of employment that makes this sector not only difficult to regulate in a way, but actually it is the very structure of economic changes since the 1990s that has actually made contract work the norm in almost every form of employment in this country, and has eroded the basis of, or the privileges, or actually we should say the rights of permanent employment. And the other thing is also to do with the rapid privatization of sanitation in general. For example, in Bangalore, where the city municipal corporation said that apartment complexes need to have their own STPs, right, their own sewage treatment plants. So automatically this means that it's your responsibility, right, to clean that sewage treatment plant. And who are you then going to call in to do it? Whoever's going to do the job cheapest, which is not going to be the state sewage service, because they're not hiring more people. The main thing really is to end contractualization. I think that is one of the most important demands, ending contractualization, and then also ending the privatization of sanitation functions on individual residents. So if I have a septic tank in my house, it's my zimmedari to get that cleaned. And I think ultimately that's the problem, because that's actually where this lack of oversight starts to come in. We have to look beyond the existing laws to think about how labor laws in general have become diluted and difficult to mobilize.